This is the guidance film then for the lesson on ideology. So we start the lesson off with the students looking at the lyrics to We Didn't Start the Fire by Billy Joel, looking at the 20th century, admittedly from a slightly American perspective from the years 1949 to 1989, so covering that period of history known as the Cold War. So as they go through the lyrics, synced in with the music, jot down notes on how many of these, for example, that they recognize, only there that they don't understand, more about. And coming to the chorus, we didn't start the fire, it was always burning since the world's been turning. We didn't start the fire, we didn't light it, but we tried to fight it. What exactly is Billy Joel trying to say with this? And carry the 20s again to the present. Introduces in history, end of World War II, the end of the Cold War, and you get to ride it one grew up during a particular time. So the lesson is focusing on ideology. Now this can be taught therefore as an introduction to the Cold War world, or as a comparison between democracy and dictatorship. So both ways to look at both themes. In the lesson we want to look at what ideology is, how ideology affects us, and then consequently how it might affect the Cold War. The first task is to think about how the celebrations at the end of World War II, in this case the Americans and the Russians shaking hands at a place called Torgau, how they went from being allies fighting a war to this nuclear standoff that would last for over 50 years, with buttons poised to be pressed that could end the world with nuclear weapons, as demonstrated. So the first activity that the students do, we have examples here in groups of 5, is that they are all responsible for an image that is presented to them in an envelope. The idea is that each of these pictures will travel in silence around the group, with each student writing down a reaction to that particular image, whether they see it as a positive image, a negative image. Each of the images is passed around until everyone has commented on each of those particular images. The job then is for each person to start again then with the image that they started with. And what they have to do is to read their own comment and compare that to the other people in the group. And then to summarize the feelings and the consensus of the group. To say why it is that chances are that the students in the group have had a similar reaction to the same image. Now you can control that, you have the images and you can talk that through. Each of those images are designed to stimulate a specific response. Your second task then is to take the envelope with the second envelope, with these series of flags, and think about different ways in which these flags can be organized. Now hopefully that won't simply be based upon what they look like, but based upon their prior learning. Again, the activity will take it, and then we are obviously looking at the differences between these countries, democracy and dictatorships. Then we move on again, and we do the same again. Prior learning, Churchill and Roosevelt were leaders of democracies, whereas Stalin is the odd one out there being led of a dictatorship. So what we're going to move on to now is looking at this concept of ideology. Given what we have looked at so far, what do you think the word ideology means? Come and think of using examples to back up and support what it's saying. So the metaphor used in the lesson is that ideology is a pair of glasses that we all wear, a pair of lenses through which we see the world. Now, wearing these glasses, you see the world with perfect clarity. What you see, you understand. Now, the flip side is true. If you wear someone else's ideological lenses, if, for example, you put on someone else's pair of glasses, the world and how you see it is unclear. And what is unclear, you don't understand. And what you don't understand, you don't necessarily trust. And what you don't trust, there is the potential that you might be fearful of. So consequently, we live in a world where not everyone sees the world through the same image, through the same lenses as we do, and consequently we see the world differently. Now, at which point you can go back to those images that they all commented on. Despite all the differences of all the people maybe in the class, chances are there was a consensus about each image. However, when you wear someone else's ideological lenses, you can see these things differently. So, for example, the dog in Korea would simply be food. We eat food in this country that other people think is ideologically wrong. For example, the eating of bacon to Jews and Muslims is considered to be unclean. The attack on the Twin Towers we see as an act of terror. Some people saw it as the act of freedom fighters and heroes. So ideology allows us to see the world in a certain way, but we need to be acutely aware that not everyone sees the way. Now, illustrate this through a second piece of music. And we're going to study the lyrics to Sting's song Russians. And again, as this rolls through, we lyrics and what is he saying about the way that Russians think. All the highlighted. And you can either link to a video already on YouTube that has this particular element of the presentation, or you move it forward with the link that's only to the music. So the chorus, if the Russians love their children too. And of course, a strange comment. Everyone loves their children, so why isn't asked the question, I hope the Russians love their children too. Obviously, it's a question based upon an ideological interpretation. If the Russians love their children too, why do they behave so aggressively? It's true. Surely the Russians would say the same thing about ourselves and the Americans. Okay, so then we analyze the lyrics to this particular. And again, these questions are all to be answered on the worksheet that's been provided. So about why does he have to ask if the Russians love their children too? Surely it's a given that all parents love their children. What would the chorus have been if Sting had been a Russian? What do different ideologies stop each other side being able? And then we illustrate the Cold War itself, two sides of the Iron Curtain, look at both sides, make a prediction as to which side the people in your class would more likely to be on, and chances are they'd rather be on the West. Back to the aims and objectives of the lesson. What is an ideology? How does it affect us? How does it subsequently affect the history?